Tall Boys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money. KDR Suspension. Unlock your full potential with KDR. High Gear Success. From helping riders get sponsored to motorsports event operation and promotion, shift your passion into high gear. Track 93, the place to get ready to race. And by IADV. From routes, guided tours, and more, we'll help you get lost.
Tremble. I got a little sweaty.
Private equity has never involved itself in anything that didn't result in tragedy.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into episode 102 of Tall Boys and Trackmasters. Trevor couldn't make it in tonight. He will be back with us next week on a very special collaboration episode we got planned. So welcome in. If you guys could do us a favor and give us a like and a subscription, we'd appreciate it. It definitely helps us out. We have an awesome episode lined up for you guys this evening. Joining us tonight is a gentleman who has taken the reins and offered a source of protection for motorcycles in the hard enduro scene, and a guy that we definitely wanted to sit down and talk with, and that is Mr. Devin Funaro. How you doing, buddy?
Really good. It's awesome to be on, and it was super fun watching your intro. That was super cool.
Yeah, we like to have fun here on the show, so.
Yeah, and over 100 episodes. How long have you been doing this show for?
Oh, we've been going at it for, I believe, 3.5 years now. So about every other Tuesday. And yeah, we finally hit the century mark, and it feels good. So
yeah, congrats on over 100 episodes.
Thanks,
that's
man.
A lot of dedication to be able to keep up with something like that for that long.
Yeah, it's definitely morphed into a full-time job in addition to everything else that we got going on. I'm sure you're well versed in that subject. So, all right. Yep. Well, before we kind of dive into the meat and potatoes of tonight's show, let's dive into your background a little bit, my friend. Where were you born and raised?
Sure. Yeah, born and raised in Livermore, California. It's pretty close to San Francisco or Bay Area, just a little inland from there. Got into dirt bikes really young. My dad got me into dirt bikes, and it's just an addiction that's stuck ever since. I think it's, kind of a classic story. It seems like there's kind of two ways. You either get into it when you're a kid or you get into it later in life. But yeah, either way you get bitten by the bug. I mean, we all have the same problem. We just love two wheels way too much.
Yeah, that's definitely true. What was your first motorcycle?
First motorcycle was a Honda 50. Probably another. That's probably got to be like 80% of people started on Honda 50. A classic story that my dad likes to share is back when I was first started riding. Right, you'd start a kid out on a Honda 50 with some training wheels, and he'd take me out to the local OHV and spin around the parking lot. And apparently I'd just become fed up with the training wheels, and I told him, pull over one day, throw a fit, and say, I don't want to ride anymore. The bike doesn't do what I tell it to do. And, he's kind of looks at me. Oh, well, okay, don't tell mom. And then rips the training wheels off. And ever since that day, probably, I think I was hooked.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was your early riding just kind of trail riding out in the desert areas and stuff and or any kind of racing when you were younger, anything like that?
When I was really young, definitely didn't race at all. Like I wasn't a motocross kid or anything like that. We'd go ride up in the hills. There's a place really close. It's called Carnegie, which is like a local OHV park, a Cal State Park. And then we'd go up into the mountains up in the Sierra as I got a little bit older. Yeah, it was all trail riding until like high school. Got into the local hare scramble series around then and started racing like the C200 class and then the B200 class. Had a bunch of fun with that. I think I made it to the A class at the tail end of my hare scramble career, and was like, whoa, these guys are fast. I don't know about this. But yeah, enjoyed it a lot, and yeah, had a lot of fun. I rode a YZ125 for a long time.
Okay.
That was, such a fun bike. I think 125 is going to be the most fun bike you can ride.
I agree with that. I had a YZ125 as well at one point in my racing career, and I remember, kind of outgrowing it at one point, and I think I had a KX250 two-stroke at the time, and we were running the GNCC series over here on the East Coast, and I really wasn't in it for points or anything, but I wanted to race that weekend, and was out doing some practicing and locked the KX up, and I still had the old YZ sitting there. We were trying to sell it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this thing out one last hurrah. And I went up to the Sportsman A class on that 125. And I'll never forget that race just because you could not hurt that thing. Yeah, just wide open, rail and everything. Just such a blast to scream that bike.
It just makes you feel like a hero. Never mind how fast you're actually going or anything like that. Just holding it to the stops and rowing through the gearbox. Wah, 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 wah. Just makes you smile.
Yeah, I was waiting for the reed cage to get sucked through the intake there. As hard as I was trying to run that thing. But yeah, no, YZs are great machines, and definitely would suggest those to anybody out there looking for any kind of off-road bike. Right. So, you get up towards the A class, and then it sounds like our stories may be a little bit similar where college comes into play. Am I right?
Yeah. I was big into dirt bikes all through high school and raced the hare scrambles a little bit and stuff. Never super serious or anything, but fun and B class, raced a little A class, and then shipped off to college. I went to Colorado State University and got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. At the tail end of university is when we started the business. But through college, I rode still. I brought my bike, which at the time was a YZ250 out, and right about then, I had also started racing a few hard enduros. I think like maybe the last year of high school or first year of college, I raced the first one. There weren't that many around, so I think the only one that was happening was that I knew of was the Last Dog Standing in SoCal.
Okay.
So I raced that, and I like that. That kind of started to set the hook, and then, there weren't that many, so it was easy to go chase a couple of them around. I think the following year I went to the King of the Motos. So I was still riding, not as much as I had before because it got a lot more difficult. I'd keep my bike at a storage unit, on the other side of town, and college is busy and stuff like that. But yeah, you also had a bit of a lapse of riding in college.
Yeah, I was kind of getting to that threshold where it's like, what are we doing here? What am I doing with my life? Am I going to keep pursuing this racing career, or I'm going to get a college degree and join the workforce and go that route? And I decided to go that route, and then went to WVU and majored in beer pong and liquor drinking, and quickly decided that school wasn't for me, and joined the real workforce, and then slowly got back into motorcycles in my life. So yeah, that sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I just kept with the motorcycle thing, but that's for another day. So I understand, just kind of looking from your website for the business and stuff, that that root focus of the mechanical engineering degree is really what drove you guys to start CrossLinked. So I'm really curious to hear your side of the story about how you took that basically senior project and turned this into a whole business and company. That's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, totally. I'd been wanting to do mechanical engineering for a while, and so and had done like little projects and stuff. I was on a robotics team in high school, so I was like ready and raring to go when we got to college. Enjoyed it a lot. Did some other extracurricular projects, but like I really liked building stuff. Like I actually did like to get out and build stuff. You know, people go to get an ME degree for different reasons, and there's like a whole huge variety of different people. Some people want to be like managers, and some people are really smart with the math and whatever. But I really like building stuff. And so I'd done a bunch of that leading up to college. And when the senior project stuff came around, I knew about it the whole 4 years, and I wanted to go big. And at the time, me and a buddy had been going to these races together. We'd gone to the King of the Motos together. I drug him to Texas to ride Red Bull Override, which was another event that they don't do anymore, but was pretty cool. And so he had kind of gotten the bug as well. And we're both going into the senior year at the senior project, and we found out about this program through our school that was like an entrepreneurship program. So they would, most senior projects for our school would come from like local businesses. Some were big and some were smaller, but like, what's the company? There's a beer company in Fort Collins.
Is it Coors?
No, it's not. It's not Coors or Anheuser-Busch. Maybe it'll come to me. Okay. But they have a big plant there. Yeah. And so like some kids were working in the plant, like crawling through the maze of pipes, like mapping all the pipes out. And some folks were working with Woodward, which makes like aerospace, valves and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of the normal path. But we saw this and they were giving away up to $5,000 to like do whatever you want. Essentially, you just had to prove that you had like a business idea behind it. Yeah. So we're like driving to go ride one day, and we see this thing, and like, okay, what do we make? And we had all these crazy ideas. What if we made ferromagnetic shock absorbers? That way you could like, change the dampening curves at the rate of the suspension. Like crazy stuff. And we kind of thought harder about it. We're like, well, if we want to actually succeed in any measurable capacity, we're gonna have to simplify this a little bit. That's like, maybe we'll do that later or something like that. And we had been going to these Hard Enduro races, and I had just gotten a new YZ250 like a few months before, and had put, all the protection parts on it, and swing arm guards was one of them. I bought, the ones that were available, and I had gone out and ridden and tore it off on the first ride, and, put it in the backpack. And I guess that was kind of the seed that started it. Is like, man, what if we make something different, something that's better than this? There's got to be something better. These things are kind of chintzy and they just like fall off, and you see them all over the place too. Like even back then it seemed like less of them, but like even now it seems like every place I ride, there's some pair of swing arm guards that's falling off.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I did a hair scramble race Saturday, and I saw a pair of them on the side of the track. So yes, that's still a problem here as well.
It's literally, they're everywhere. Like it doesn't matter, public riding area or a race, all the people come up for a race, and you find 2 or 3, or they're hanging off bushes all the time and stuff. Yeah. So it's definitely still a thing, but that was kind of that was an idea that we had, and we were like, this is simple enough that we should be able to succeed in not only coming up with some good idea, but actually like carrying it through further the process. Usually like a lot of senior design projects, they kind of get to like a V1-ish prototype by the end of the year, and that's it. So by choosing something simple, we were like, we can get through a few iterations, we can build out, manufacturing, and like, we want to sell these things by the end of the year. That was like kind of the goals. Like we want to collect some money,
right?
Start a real business. So that was the idea, at least. So we got into it. They gave us the $5,000. We pitched it and started researching and trying to come up with new ideas. And I don't know who came up with it, whether like my dad gets credit. He sometimes thinks he gets credit, or me, or Bryce. Bryce was my good friend that we started this together. And we were like, there was actually a third member as well, but he was just a person that pulled in from the program, and Tyler.
Okay.
He helped out, but it was more just a senior project for him. We were kind of more in it. We, love the dirt bikes and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we started, and the key idea ended up being there's maybe two parts. One was the chain adjuster bracket, which was like to make a metal connection to the chain adjuster bolt on the swing arm. So if you imagine your swing arm, you take out the chain adjuster and you slip a little 90-degree bracket on, and you put the chain adjuster back in. That's how we would end up holding the swing arms to the bike, swing arm guards to the bike, and that allowed them to not fall off. And then the second part was just thermoforming them out of this thick plastic. And we got lucky with the idea. And then we also got lucky that the school had a old thermoforming machine that we could use to prototype. So the first molds we made actually were like 2x4s that we went and bought at Home Depot. We like planered them, glued them up, and then like CNC cut them out. And yeah, so that's kind of how it all started from the senior design project.
That is awesome, man. That's really cool to hear, just such a grassroots story about how that can, you guys basically solved a problem. And, that the idea to bolt that to the chain adjuster is genius in my opinion. Cause yeah, there's not a whole lot of place to bolt anything on a swing arm if you think about it. I mean, so that's awesome to hear that story. So I can probably go out on a limb here and say that, you probably didn't envision just how much work would go into creating something like that. So why don't you take us through the production process there a little bit of what it took to get from idea to finished product?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like from the, like in the newer or the beginning phase, I think that's a great place to illustrate that. Like we went from idea, like, okay, we'll have this bracket, to like a prototype within probably like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, the idea was pretty simple, and making the computer models were somewhat simple. That's something that we had experience in. So we brought these models, and then we started cutting our own molds out of 2x6s and stuff. And then we'd go to this thermoforming machine. We'd spend hours there fixing the machine for one, because it was broken. And then we would load these sheets into the machine late at night, and always late at night for whatever reason. And you let them heat up. It's like a gigantic oven, and then you pull them out and you suck them against these molds. It's kind of like a vacuum bag, if you will. So it sucks down against the molds. And the first ones, it actually works pretty good. And you're like, oh, that's what we look for. And so then you cut it out. We would start by jigsawing it out on the floor, and we kind of Sharpie lines on it. And then we would bring those over to the bike and fit them on. And the first ones didn't fit at all. And we're like, what the heck is going on? These are way too small. We didn't get it. And we figured out a pretty simple thing, that the plastic, as it cools, it shrinks.
Right.
So the whole thing had shrunken up, and now it won't fit on. So then you go back and you cut new molds, and then this back and forth process.
Right.
Making jigs to trim them out and stuff. So the prototype took a few months, and then we had the first set. These were built for my YZ250. Like they kind of worked. We put them on, and we went and rode a bunch. I was like, okay, these don't fall off. We're done.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, at that point we're like, cool, we're done. Let's go make like 50 of them and send them. 10 sets, and we'll send them to all our our good friends that go to all the races.
Right.
So we had to transfer from a YZ250 to the KTMs because nobody rides YZ250s at Hard Enduros. So we re-engineered the whole thing for the old KTM. We had to make them 2 different ones for the PDS bike and the linkage bike.
Yeah. And
we had to come up with some process, that wasn't jigsawing them out on the floor to be able to make them repeatably. That took, another 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And we built all these jigs, and I have this picture of a pile, like a gigantic pile of scrap and old jigs and jig form boxes. And we spent so many late nights in the machine shop at school. And we were really, we wanted to make this a business, and we were like, we want to build something now. So the first semester we were actually building stuff. Nobody does that in senior design. They're all there at the very end of the last semester. They're cramming at the end to build some prototype. So we had the shop to ourselves all the time. We're just there for hours and hours. Spring break, I think we stayed around and we were there the entire time, like 12-hour days the whole time. But then we finally had 10 sets by the end of by like Christmas break, and we sent them out to all our buddies, and they all got to ride with them for a while, and that was super cool. And they're like, these are great, and we're like, okay, now we gotta make some. We gotta start selling them. And so we started doing that, and by the end of the year we had been selling, like we had sold, I don't know, 10s or 20 or something like that units or something like that. And it was pretty funny too. Like the end of the year, we started, we're buying all this stuff through the school, and we're buying like pallets of plastic. And they're like, so you've overspent your account, your $5,000. You've overspent. They're like, we don't really know what to do. Normally people don't do this. Yeah. And we're like, well, we made money, so we can pay you back. And they're like, sorry, hold the door. What did you said you made money? What's going on? So there's like all this confusion. They're like, we don't really know what to do about this.
We're just going to give you an A, right?
I think we brought an A. We didn't like, there was a competition for the senior design project at the end of the year where everybody presents. We got like third place in that, which I thought was all right, but I thought maybe we deserved a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with that sentiment, because it's not just, designing something and bringing it to fruition where you can touch it, hold it, see it, and it works. You're also created a business at the same time. So that, I think you get extra points, at least in my opinion, on that side.
They weren't judging off that metric, but I think so. And it was very interesting. There's so many things that you just don't think about. There's easy things that people I think get hung off right off the bat, like, oh, you got to make an LLC or whatever. But that's just the beginning. And I don't know. And even through today, right? Like, we've gone through all these processes, like you said, the production process. Like, it's for us, we didn't get to skip to the end stage because we didn't have that much money, and we were nervous, and we didn't know how many of these things we were going to sell. So first, it was thermoforming them at the school, and then we actually bought the thermoformer from the school, and we brought it to our house, and we were making them on the side of my parents' house in a Harbor Freight tent,
nice,
like a 10 by 20 tent thing. Yep. That was a whole period. We did that for like 4 or 5 months, and then we're like, okay, we're finally selling enough. We can't keep up. We have to outsource thermoforming. So then we found a vendor to thermoform them, and then that goes well for a while, and then they can't keep up. And then we're like, okay, well, we got to find a vendor for injection molding. And so it's just been this continuous process of figure out how to build more, and then figure out how to sell more. We haven't talked very much about marketing and how, which is, probably because I don't like it as much, but figure out how to sell more. And then it's like, okay, finally I'm selling more, and now my whole life's exploding because I'm selling too much. Okay, figure out how to build more. It's hilarious.
Yeah. It's the snake constantly eating its own tail, right? It just keeps going and going and going.
Yes.
Well, that was definitely one of the bullet points that I had here, was a little motor marketing. So
you're like reading my mind. Are you typing these as we go?
No, I actually did a little pre-research.
I like
here,
it.
So.
Awesome.
But yeah, so, obviously, that marketing aspect can be challenging for a lot of people, but, it seems like you guys went about it the right way. You created it, put it out in the public to your friends to try to get some good feedback, and jumped, head first after that point. So, I can understand that probably in today's world, post-COVID, that is, just the marketing aspect of running a business in an enthusiast-driven sport like we have here is probably pretty challenging.
I definitely find it challenging. And it's definitely been, I think, probably the area where I've learned the most. Like, the engineering stuff is kind of the background, and I love it, and I learn a lot. I've learned a ton, especially on, realizing a product, getting it made, vendor relationships, that kind of stuff. But on the marketing, is like everything from ground up we were learning. And we started just by doing what we knew how to do, which was show up for races. And we started getting booths at races. The setup was pretty janky. It was just like a plastic Walmart table, and throw some swing arm guards on top of it, and go to the races and try and sell some. And that was how it started. And then, oh, well, we all have Instagrams. We better make an Instagram page. And we started, making a few posts and that kind of thing. And then go to more races, meet more people. And then then we started getting into trying to make Instagram Reels because they have so much more reach than posts. And like, I'm sure, I don't know, the original ones probably weren't very good. They definitely didn't get as much reach as they do now. And we were much more awkward. Like, it's just this skill to develop to like talk to yourself on the camera and like think of something that's catchy enough that'll hook someone. And then now in this phase, we've even expanded, or I've even expanded to paid advertising through like the platforms like Meta and Google. But it's also, it all seems like it's a like synergy. Like, I don't think you can just start tomorrow and spend $1 million on Meta ads and like get that much success. So I'm glad we built the community, and then we kind of like, and like a good brand image, and then we try and like capitalize on that with more ad spend and that kind of thing. And then we kind of go back and forth.
Right. Yeah. You need to see a return on the investment, right?
Yeah. And that's like one of the hardest things with marketing for me as a engineer, like traditional, or I don't know about traditional, but like say sponsoring a race or a rider or a series. It can be very challenging to feel like you get any return on investment because there's not very much that you can do to like track, you know, did this person, I sponsored, you know, XYZ, and then did they send blah, blah. There's like ways you could try and do it, but the paid advertising, like the technology behind it is so, it's kind of scary really. But they know that you are on Instagram, you scrolled, you click through, and then you purchased, and they can use this algorithmically, and they can tell you exactly, okay, this is how many purchased from your ads, and this is how much you spent, and this is, you know, therefore your return on investment. So like, that has been really powerful for us, and eye-opening just how the world works with, you know, how much money gets spent on that kind of marketing. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, if you want a little dose of that being slightly successful, one of your Instagram reels is the way that I discovered you. So got a little bit of a return there.
Definitely. Yeah. And we see that, like, that's why we keep investing in this, because like it reaches so many people, and and it's been really interesting. So
that's cool. That's cool. So one thing that I did want to ask was, you know, how challenging is it to just stay current with what you offer as far as the swing arm guards? Because you and I both know that motorcycle manufacturers are probably the worst about keeping a timeline of longevity of a model. So they're always wanting the best, the best, the best. And I can assume that just one slight little change is going to throw your whole entire program off its rocker. So talk about that a little bit.
Totally. We've been actually pretty lucky in how this has gone. For the first few years, there were only 2 swing arms that we really cared about fitting, which was the old KTM linkage design and PDS design. And we're also lucky in that our brand, or our niche of hard enduro or off-road in general, is so heavily dominated by KTM, the KTM group, that we were able to get a lot, we could still sell to a lot of different people by only focusing on them, at least in the beginning. So that's where we put our focus. They've changed the swing arm on us once in 2024. So that definitely threw a big wrench in things. And it was, immediately like all red alert, we got to go start making molds and find a bike to scan and this whole thing. But we got over that. And the real thing that's allowed us to grow well without, crazy amounts of expenses, that the KTM group is such a large market share of the off-road riding population. Yeah. Now, where we struggled and where we haven't figured this out really is that we still only offer the KTM group and Beta for fitment.
Yeah.
And that's something I want to get better at, but it's been really challenging. Like, Beta was our experiment, and we don't sell very many Beta products, and of the ones, we don't sell that many units a month. And so that's given a lot of pause on developing more products for other bikes, Sherco, Yamaha, or I get all kinds of questions. Can you fit a 1987 RM 132? And it's like, Probably not, but I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure that was definitely a point I wanted to touch on. Was I'm sure your message box gets blown up with questions like that, like, "Hey, there's a market here, and the market is that guy and that guy only." So I'm sure it is challenging to say, "Thank you for the suggestion, but that's just not in the cards right now."
Yeah, I try and note it down and
Yeah.
track that over time. And like something that's been surprising is like when I actually look back at the notes, like a lot of Stark folks want swing arm
Okay.
guards,
I can
which is
see that.
surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of it like as a back to the marketing lens, like if you have bought a Stark, you're probably on your second motorcycle, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is like the range and stuff like that. So this is probably an additional motorcycle. So you've now put yourself in a category of like you've got a good amount of extra money around, and so you want the best stuff for your bike, and therefore maybe you want our swing arm guards. That's kind of how I justify it in my head, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's a good way to look at it, honestly. Do you find yourself maybe in sort of a balancing act between wanting to do an expansion and do more bikes and sticking with what you know works, what sells? Do you see that sometimes?
Oh, 100% all the time. Like from day to day, I swing back and forth from we should never offer any other brand. Like we should focus all in on KTM, at least for the foreseeable future, because every dollar that we put into a KTM product is probably going to yield us $5 or $10 versus every dollar we put into a Yamaha product, or perhaps maybe a better example would be like a Sherco product is maybe only going to yield us $1 in return, right? And so that's one perspective, like this kind of mathematical, precise capitalist perspective. And then the other perspective is like people are asking for it. They want our stuff, and I want to be able to give that to them and to be able to support the community of folks that are out there thrashing their bikes. So it's like it's back and forth, and a lot of it has tied back to like production and all this kind of stuff. Like our current thermoforming vendor has become a pain to work with. Like they're always late, and so we're having all these issues mostly with late. Like the quality is pretty good, but the lateness has been a big problem. Mm-hmm. And so investing money into them as a producer to yield for these new models becomes even more, it's like there's all these compounding factors. And we've been working to find like perhaps a new vendor, but surprisingly enough, this vendor is just like, they are killing it on price. So there's all these like kind of factors that come into it. And short answer is I really want to offer more. Like I'd like to be able to find a system in which at a reasonable cost, I can go and cover all these bikes. That way we can then get the data, see which ones we need to double down on, and et cetera. But yeah, it's mostly from wanting to support the community.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I can kind of see, at least on the hard enduro world, that level of just gnarliness and knowing that you are going to destroy the machine that you're on also breeds this innovation and this need, because I can think in the dual sport world that we're pretty ingrained in, the need for a swing arm guard. I mean, some of the rides that we do, they'd probably be pretty decent, but that level of exposure, and especially here in the United States with the popularity of US hard enduro and stuff, I'm sure that has really grown, and it's probably rewarding to see your components out there in the United States and this hard enduro stuff working.
Yeah, no, it's really, really cool. And it's changed a lot over time. Like the first year or two, we'd see them a lot at the races where we were doing this core marketing push, but now, which was just showing up at the races. But as it's grown, it's gotten really exciting that I can like go on Facebook Marketplace and see swing arm guards on bikes.
Yeah.
I can go to events and see, pick out some people that have them. All that kind of stuff has been super exciting, but I'm usually looking at all the people that don't have them on their bikes, and I'm like, all right, we could do better. There's so many more bikes to protect out there. But you're totally right. Like the average trail ride or dual sport ride, like, do you really, really need the swing arm guards? And like, the answer could be no, for sure. And that's okay for a lot of people. And that's why we're going to continue developing more products that solve more problems. But I think as they've definitely gained in popularity, even from that rub effect of like they're kind of a cool thing to get, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you also kind of have that bling factor as well, because let's face it, a lot of stock swing arms are just ugly to look at. Nobody really wants to see that. And I like the way that they kind of tie in some of the other components that you have. I actually, and I wanted to touch on that too. One of the ones that I was extremely interested in was the full wrap coverage fork guard. So definitely would like to talk about those.
Yeah, that's been a super cool product. It's probably I think it's more exciting now than the swing arm guards. Not just because they're newer, but because I think that the risk of damaging your swing arm, or like if you scratch up your swing arm, it's resale value, it sucks. But if you damage your forks, not only is it a bunch of money, but your forks stop working as good, they leak oil, etc.
Right.
So the problem is even bigger there. The reason that I thought we needed to jump into the fork guard game was I went to Hawaii 2 years ago now, three years ago. I was there anyway, 3 years ago, I think. I'd gone to a race and, had a good time. I go to pull my bike out of the container in Arizona, and there's a golf ball sized dent in my fork. I'm like, what is going on? How did I not see this? And what I come to realize is that the dent is actually behind the OEM fork guard. So it's not like it went straight through the OEM fork guard and just punched this dent in it. And that started this chain reaction. I had like, not only do these need to be thicker, they also need to actually fully wrap. Because there's like a bunch of companies that have gone and added 10 or 20% more wrappage, but nobody's gone all the way to where they touch in the back. And I think it's like a two-part thing. One, there's like a stigma against it. Like people think it won't work, which is, fair. It's something different. Two, tooling, like making this product with a fully closed is actually pretty challenging. And it took a while to find somebody that was willing to do it. Because of the way the injection molding process works. So those kind of things together make you want to not do this actual full wrap fork guard. But we figured it out, and I'm really excited about it because I think it's saving a lot of forks out there.
Yeah, and I think that just from my standpoint, I think that product itself may appeal to a wider range of people, not just the hard enduro side. Because I mean, I'm sure as well as everybody else out there that most manufacturers stick with one fork company, so that product is going to bolt on the majority of their full-size machines. So I could definitely see myself being able to throw those on my Gas 700 over here with the WP-48s as well. So that's something I'm definitely interested in.
Yeah, we should get you a set for sure to try out. It's been really interesting as people have started to adopt them, and they've been around now in some capacity. Like the version 1 was around for about a year, and I was making those in my garage. And then we took a little hiatus as we geared up for version 2, and now they're outsourced and properly injection molded. But one of the biggest things that people have pushed back on is whether or not mud is going to pack up in them.
Yeah.
But I think through using them for now a couple years in like all the worst, nastiest mud, I am convinced that they protect make your seals last longer in muddy environments, because a lot less mud is getting in onto your fork stanchion for the wipers to wipe off to begin with. So people will decide for themselves, but that's my 2 cents on that.
No, I think you're spot on right there, bud. Let's see here. Yeah, I think this would be a good point to go into one of our favorite subjects and segments here on the show, and that is the six-pack. All right, the six-pack is brought to us by our friends at the Hog Rock Adventure Rally. Check them out in Cave in Rock, Illinois. You don't want to miss this one out. Registration is now live. Join them June 25th to the 28th, and you can find them at hogrockadventurerally.com. All right, Devin, the six-pack is just a quick hit six-pack of questions just to get you know you just a little bit better. So first up, my friend, what is your must-have trail tool when you're out there on the trail?
Definitely the KTM tool, the T handle with the few bits. I guess
Yeah,
maybe that's
sockets and
technically
stuff.
more than one tool, but that's the one.
No, that's good. If you could only do 2 mods to a motorcycle, what would they be?
Gummy tires and mousses.
Very hard enduro specific, but I like it. Next up, best trail snack.
I catch a lot of flack for not really snacking. I bring full sandwiches, like the biggest ones you can think of.
That's awesome. Like pastrami on rye in the tail bag.
They're usually like turkey or something
Turkey.
like that.
Okay. What's your dream bike?
I pretty much have it because they haven't made too many changes to the KTM. But the KTM 300 XCW has just been mind blowing, and I've been loving it for the last couple of years. I've got a 2024.
Sweet. And last, what's your favorite terrain to ride in?
I like the hard type of riding that's kind of grinded out. So imagine a steep hill in the woods, dark dirt, roots, rocks, but like I struggle a little bit more on the feature-based stuff. So I like the tic-tacs and just like suffer up this to the top of some mountain. That's my favorite.
I think me and you will get along just fine, my friend. Nobody likes to ride with me over here. I like the hardest possible, rockiest, gnarliest stuff you can ever do. A lot of our version of dual sport is pretty hardcore. We call it hard enduro with a plate over here in West Virginia. So
I like that. I'm gonna have to come to West Virginia.
But we got some great stuff over here, man, especially some hard enduro stuff. And that's what I wanted to touch on next for sure, was just the explosion of hard enduro here in the last few years. My first kind of introduction to it was a really good friend of mine and pro rider, Ryan Eccles, said that he signed up for this Red Bull event in Texas. And we're like, okay, well, we know about obviously the Romaniacs and Erzberg. That was like the pinnacle, and you really didn't have any other exposure other than that. But he got to go do the Red Bull Last Man Standing. I think it was in 2007. And I got to see firsthand just how crazy hard enduro really can be. And just was always a fan since then. Always wanted to try it. I've done a couple of the events here locally in Ohio and PA. But just from your perspective of doing it now and the explosion here in the United States, where you're seeing more and more events come on board and having a whole circuit here basically in the United States, I'd just like to get your opinion on hard enduro here in the United States.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool because I started not quite on the ground floor, back in the 07 era, but it seemed like right as the curve was starting to go up and it was starting to gain popularity or momentum, that's kind of when I was starting to get involved. So I was riding the last dog standing down in SoCal, or we went to this Texas race a few times, Override and Rev Limiter, just right as the nucleus was forming, and watched it go through a lot of interesting growth spurts. The first one was the first version 1 crew of promoters that had this idea of putting on a series. And maybe even before that, maybe version 0, I think, was the East Coast boys, the Hard Enduro Life, or I'm blanking on that. Drew Kirby and those guys.
Yeah.
So I think they had maybe started by posting a ranked list that was we're going to just sum up the results and call it a championship. And that maybe started for a little bit. And then the version 1 crew got on, and there were some great people. Mark Koch, who put on a bunch of the Texas races, kind of was part of it. And MJ's Moto Photos was going around and doing these. So if you are a super OG hard enduro fan, you'll maybe recognize some of these folks. But they started kind of putting it together, and they kind of started this first inkling of a series. And it had some growth and some potential. And then our second crew kind of came around that's now running it now. So we've got Matt Musgrove, Josh Shasher, and the media side, Ryan McCasland, or the last couple of years, it was Blake Scott and the Sky Pixel Media. So there's been all these people. And I think that's really on the racing side why it's exploded is there's been a ton of effort. And most of it's not nobody sees it, but it's been a lot of continuous effort by these folks. I don't know exactly how lucrative it is or not, but I can't imagine that they are, you know, millionaires. And so it's a lot of dedication and just grit, and like they all love the sport quite a bit, and so they've invested a ton of time to make it what it is. And then also on the race promoter side, right? Like these are people that have fallen in love with the sport and that like it so much that they want to put on races. So like Jim Flynn in Arizona that puts on the Grinding Stone event
Mhm.
about to go to in a couple weeks, or just this next weekend actually. Or like the Silver Mountain Hard Enduro.
Yeah.
Well, that's also gone through some growth. Now James Stearns runs it, but before it was some other gentleman. So yeah, it's gone through a lot of growth. As to why it's growing so much, I think that there's something about the fact that everyone can have their own personal challenge and personal win. Like there's only one winner at the end of the day, you know, for the first place of the pro class, but everybody can go out and feel like they beat the mountain or
Yeah.
gave it their best shot. Sometimes you lose to the mountain. Actually, I think we all kind of lose the whole time, but you feel like you've made some progress, like you've gotten to be a little bit better of a rider. You've honed your technique, and so you've got further around maybe than the previous year, or just felt like you had a good day. So I think there's something infectious about it. I can't quite put my finger on it, but you've been to a few events. Maybe you share the same kind of feeling.
Yeah, it's that feeling of conquering the unconquerable. You know, that pure instinct. I think it's native in most people anymore that crave adventure. It's that last frontier of unconquered, unbridled, just pure adrenaline. I'm going to get this done because it's impossible. I kind of live by that code whenever it comes to my riding. I literally just raced my Africa Twin at a 2-hour hare scramble race here in West Virginia. I can't hardly walk right now, but you know what? I was the talk of the entire race that time. It's one of the funnest races I've ever done. Just people flipping out because why are you taking that out there? Because I can, you know?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. And I think that just that aspect is infectious, you know? And it can be a great marketing tool. Look at how many Tenere 700s Yamaha's sold because Paul Tross is out there at Erzberg and everything else flipping that thing around. So, you know, I've grown up watching that myself. You know, obviously Graham Jarvis, just the list goes on of these top tier guys. But I am really excited to see the growth in the future, especially here in the United States, because we've got some really good riders.
Yeah, the riders have been incredible too. Like the level, like I remember the first couple races I went to, I was far worse of a rider. But every year, everybody gets better. So like you feel like you're just, you know, like you keep getting better, but like I'm not really winning more. You know, I'm not doing better at the races against all my peers because everybody's out there. And the amount of people, I was just thinking about it the other day. One of my buddies went, you know, he's quite a good hard enduro rider, and he went and got a top 20 at a desert race. I was like, maybe hard enduro is the most competitive race series, like amateur race series there is, because there's all these guys that are just fired up and they chase the series all around, left coast, right coast. Like it's just crazy. But especially the pros. I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, you know, we had I guess Cody was really just dominating, but now we've had this whole group of kids become, you know, complete athletes like Ryder LeBlanc and give Cody and Tristan, and even Tristan himself, like for a while, he wasn't even really, like nobody really talked about him as being a winner of the races until he had this like light bulb moment and just started dominating. So, and there will be more of those kind of stories, I think, as time goes on, as some of the folks kind of, you know, although they keep killing it, maybe they'll be like Jarvis, but you just never know. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think one thing that me and Trevor have talked about on the show in the past when it comes to hard enduro that we really appreciate is the camaraderie too. Yeah. You know, there's some egos, but these guys get along. They're out there helping each other in some pretty terrible situations sometimes. And it's really encouraging to see that, you know, just as a spectator and a fan of the sport is, you know, a lot of different disciplines in motorcycling, be it motocross, supercross, some of the higher tier, you know, off-road GNCC hare scramble style racing. you don't really see that mesh of this guy rides for this team and this guy rides for this team, so they don't talk to each other. Like these guys are kind of going out and doing the thing together and training together, and a lot of times it's something that's really refreshing.
Yeah, it's actually shocking how much these guys all ride together. And some of them are geographically separated a decent amount. So it like kind of keeps them a little bit in a silo. Like Cody's kind of out in Colorado and Tristan is a lot of time in Canada or Southern California. So those two kind of seem separate a lot of the times. But like often, like last couple weeks ago, all of them, like the entire top 20, 25, and even a bunch of A-class guys that want to like do really well at Grinding Stone, they've all been out there for like 3 weeks out in the desert, living in their vans, riding and racing together. And we're starting to get even better content of this kind of stuff with my favorite lately has been this Endurotainment guy that goes around, Owen, and he's just a goofy guy. He's got a really goofy editing style, but he's made good friends with all of them. So he just like follows them around with a camera, and it's really it's fun to see. It's a like total backstage pass into the whole training of the pro racers. But I mean, really, one of the things that keeps me coming back is this camaraderie. And at the pro level, we see it, but all the way down, we also see it. And there's such a tight-knit community or I don't know, accepting, awesome community at these Hard Enduros. That's what keeps me back, because I want to go see all my friends. And I never actually got that so much at like the local hare scrambles and stuff. You know, you kind of go, you sit, you know, you do your thing at the truck, and then maybe afterwards you maybe go to awards for a few minutes, and then you kind of head out. It seems like something about these events, the people that it brings together, et cetera, like there is a lot of people that find very good friendships out there. And I think it's funny because most of these friends I only see like 3 states away from my home state.
Yeah.
I love it all the same. It's like super cool.
Yeah, we've always loved that here on the show, especially like just that common language of motorcycles and brings people together. There's people I ride with all the time, and I couldn't tell you what their last name is, where they live, what they do for a living, but I know that they ride a Beta 450 or something. You know, it's by the bike and their first name, and yeah, you might not see them but 6-7 times a year, but they're your best friend whenever you're there. So I always did like that.
Yeah, it's weird how motorcycles do that. I find myself pretty introverted in a lot of social situations, but as soon as there's the common bridge of motorcycles, I find that I can talk to just about anybody, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, it is funny. Well, we have our own language, right? We know what it means to take a soil sample, or start making the motorcycle noises, the brops and the bops and stuff. We already know what we're talking about. One thing that I don't think maybe some people know that you also do, and I thought was really interesting, was the fantasy Hard Enduro stuff that's on your website. So, I've done some of the Rocky Mountain Supercross stuff. I know this has been 20 years ago. GNCC had a fantasy thing that they did as well. So talk about the fantasy aspect of the Hard Enduro that you have there.
It's kind of a new thing, actually, and which is super fun. But really, this is a fusion of like technology and somebody egging me on to go do it. My buddy Ryan Boardman, we were out riding, and he was like, I think I mentioned offhand, I was like, what if I did fantasy Hard Enduro? And he was like, yes, do that. He got excited about it. It got me excited. And then really the thing that allowed this to happen was the AI coding tools. Like, I'm not a software person. I love building stuff and all that, and I'm, think I'm kind of smart on a computer, but I can't do any coding, and I would not have been able to accomplish this if there wasn't for websites that just let me type in, I want to do Rocky Mountain Fantasy, but for US Hard Enduro.
Yeah.
And so I spent like 2 weeks in the evenings, like, hammering away and testing, and then bam, there was a Fantasy Hard Enduro website. It's been super fun, and I think it's going to be good for the sport. I think people are enjoying it already, and I hope to grow it quite a bit more, because already I'm noticing at all the races, everybody's like, oh, who do you think is going to be third? Who do you think is going to be fifth? And like all this kind of aspect. And it's a complete change from essentially just who's going to win this weekend.
Right.
And I think it helps develop the story of the race quite a bit more, because people care more about the individual positions.
Yeah. No, that's great, man. I need to log on. I need to do it. I know I'm a couple rounds behind, but I'll try to jump in there and see what I can do.
We got some prizes as well. I mean, I think there's $100 CrossLink gift card for first place every race.
Okay.
100 for first, 50 for second, and 25 for third. We've started. Unfortunately, I'm super busy right now, so I wasn't able to get more prizes together for grinding some. But for Hawaii, we also did an Hard Enduro easy clutch for first place and SXS handguards for second. So like we're going to keep doing that. And then for the grand season prize, I think it's like $500 across link cash.
Nice.
And then there's, some other stuff. So there's some prizes. We're going to keep growing it, similar to the Rocky Mountain Supercross. It'll be hard to match their level, but we'll keep trying. But it's a good reason to have fun. Super easy. Just email and then make your picks.
Nice. Yeah, I'll definitely get one of that. I know that, we've kind of talked off camera a little bit in some email and stuff, but you are extremely busy, and we appreciate your time as always here this evening. But I know you're currently in the process of moving, correct? The business?
Yeah. I've been quite busy lately, and I'm embarrassed because I wasn't able to do like our communication was kind of disjointed and stuff, which is unfortunately the way I am with pretty much everything in life right now. It's something I'm not super proud of, but yeah, we're currently moving from the Bay Area, from Livermore, where I was born and raised and work right now, to Truckee, to Lake Tahoe, which I'm super excited for. My girlfriend, I'm really proud of her. She's going to grad school to get a master's.
Nice.
I'm taking my job from full-time to half-time to focus more on CrossLinked Components. And hopefully I can be a little bit more free, I can focus more energy into the business and do a better job at communication and things of that nature.
It happens, man, especially someone in your space. That's a lot going on.
It's crazy. I'm at work all day, 9 to 5, and then bam, straight into it. I'm like packing packages. My girlfriend helps a ton with packing packages, answering tons of customer emails, solving problems. Like we just shipped a bunch of stuff to the UK, to Rutherford Racing to have some distribution out there. And so you're constantly learning, how do you ship an international package? There's HS codes, and there's this and that. So it's there's constant stream of like barrage of crazy stuff, but it's super fun too.
That's good. Devin, what advice would you give yourself whenever you first started this endeavor out that you think may help yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. Hindsight is always tricky, right? Because you could tell yourself, like the other day I was lamenting that we didn't do injection molding earlier, because it's been such a game changer in repeatability and getting product fast, essentially, like keeping up with demand and being able to scale. But when we started, we didn't have that kind of money. It's the reality, right? So I look back and just, but I think the advice I would give to other people is just it's kind of cliche, but definitely be yourself, and do something that you really enjoy, because that's what's kept me through it. My business partner that I started in senior design with at one point decided he didn't want to do this anymore. And so I think if you want to last in this kind of thing, you gotta love it. You gotta enjoy going to the races. You gotta enjoy kind of late nights and learning. But yeah, just dive in face first, if you will.
Yeah. Just not over the handlebars, right?
You got to start somewhere, so might as well be right over the handlebars.
I love it. Well, hang out here with us here. We're going to go through some of the last couple segments we've got on the show, and then we'll get everybody out of here. So up next, we have a little bit of industry news. All right. First up this evening, we have a little bit of stuff coming down the pike from KTM. KTM has announced that they're going to offer a 4-year warranty extension, on all their street models, starting with the 2025 model year. This includes the Husqvarna line as well. Notable exceptions are the 350 and 500 EXC models. I think that maybe this is a way for them to try to get ahead of the Bajaj transition and try to instill some confidence in buyers. What do you think about that, Devin?
I mean, we all heard about the exploding overhead cams, right? So, I mean, I think, or at least I've only heard a little bit about it because I'm not super into the dual sport or adventure market, but I did hear about it, and it seemed like a lot of people were having issues. I think it's probably in response to that, trying to buy back some confidence. Of course, a warranty, like this is something I deal with. Like people only want to buy their motorcycle once; they don't want to have to deal with it breaking. Is the reality, even if you'll repair it for them. So it's going to take, I think, them fixing the quality issues, of course, to buy back that confidence. But at least there's something there for people that are worried.
Absolutely. And last in the industry news, we have a new BDR route has been announced. The Ozarks BDR-X is a 480-mile long loop that starts and ends in Jasper, Arkansas. The route showcases the amazing riding in and around the Ozarks St. Francis National Forest with 10 spicy sections for those wanting even more of a challenge. So if you're in that area, be sure to check out the Ozark BDR-X. It's releasing April the 3rd, I believe. So it'll be on their website. So more routes is always good for us.
How spicy we talking here?
Not your level spicy, but the average adventure bike guy probably pretty spicy for them.
I mean, adventure bikes make it harder for sure. That's a lot of weight to carry around.
I'm limping right now, so I can attest to that statement. My legs are all bruised up. All right, and last and certainly not least is one of everybody's favorite. A little had to lay her down.
Did you run into some clippings? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to lay her down. Brother.
That never gets old.
That's awesome.
This week's Had to Lay Her Down is brought to us by Jorge Silva, and he's got a buddy that hit a little bit of bridge clippings. Let's let this clip play.
Ooh,
that hole's a little deeper than it looks.
That's super deep. Look, the bike is gone.
Yeah.
Where'd it go? Oh, there it is.
I'm pretty sure you can catch a glimpse of it here. This is like a 6 days 300 too. It's like, I think it's the France one.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's completely buried.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It'll make for a very good story.
Yeah, I guess so. Our good buddy Chad Johnson, if you're watching tonight, you know all too well about how those little holes can end up being way bigger than you thought. Well, Devin, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story and sharing your thoughts this evening. Is there anything else that you can think of you'd like to touch on, or anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, just really thank the entire community that has made our business a success possible. We're still growing quite a bit, and it's thanks to every person out there that chooses to purchase our stuff. You can find us at CrossLinkedComponents.com or at any of the US Hard Enduros. And yeah, if you ever want a new thing for your dirt bike, don't hesitate to reach out and tell us that we need to make something new that's cool. And yeah, just really thankful for the community, because that's been the main vector by which we've grown. Just awesome people in the dirt bike space.
That's what it's all about, bud.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this evening. We thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Tall Boys and Track Masters.